Well, it's my understanding from what Christopher Story is saying that Obama's executive order has now allowed Interpol to be holding people at gunpoint on both ends of these Federal Reserve transactions that are necessary to execute the lien that was put on them from China to the effect of some, what was it, $47 trillion?
Yeah, I'm also hearing that. And what the Rothschild people contacted me have made this following offer to China and the Asians, and I think it's a good one. They want to take gold they have, stashed away in the Philippines, and use it to back up all the dollars that were created through honest work. In other words, not this derivatives, funny money, but the rest of the dollars, back them up to 1/28 of an ounce of gold for each dollar. And then they want to merge it with the Hong Kong dollar and rename it the Hong Kong dollar. So, and the reason is because 90% of the dollars ever created are owned by people who are not Americans, and they don't want that to become worthless paper. So they're trying to sterilize, get rid of all this phony money that created by the feds as part of their plan to take over the U.S., and then make the rest legitimate again. Now, what the Chinese have done, and this is very clever on their part, is they took all their dollars and they bought commodities and everything physical they could get their hands on. So they were buying a bunch of gold futures, and they were demanding actual payment in physical gold. And what happened was the feds didn't have the physical gold, so they sent tungsten coated with gold because it weighs, has the same density almost.
You have to dope it with a little bit of lead, but basically it's the same. Yeah.
And I've confirmed this with someone who reports to the Politburo, so this is not something I heard, on the internet or something. No?
I understand.
And then the Chinese said, well, no, we want real gold, and they don't have it. And they've been scrambling and scrambling. They've been begging us for gold, and we've been saying, no, buzz off. And so what they've done now is they've threatened to invade Venezuela, take over the oil fields there, and then cut off the oil out of the Gulf of, out of the Persian Gulf.
Right, the Gulf of Aden.
Yeah, the Gulf of Aden. So that's what all this Yemen stuff is all about. So that's where the game stands now.
And this guy who tried to blow up the airplane on Christmas, Abdul al-Muttalib, or whatever his name was, that was indicated by Christopher Story as also being agent provocateur of some kind, correct?
Of course. I mean, look, they ordered these naked body scanners before this ever happened, and the idea is to intimidate and humiliate and beat down the American people into submission, and ultimately they want to prevent travel if they can. So it's them saying, look, we can do whatever the hell we want to the American people, and they're no longer going to be able to fight us. We've got them totally subjugated. They'll do anything. This is what their message is. That's what this thing was all about, if you ask me.
Now, what do you think happened vis-a-vis the swine flu? Because there was massive paranoia on the internet about that, and a lot of people did get shots, but now we're not seeing some sudden massive die-off at this point.
That whole thing was stopped. I mean, Jane Burgermeister and others blew the lid on that, and that whole operation was failed. They were planning to kill a lot of people that way.
Right.
But it was stopped. It was also a threat on their part, saying, hey, if you don't deal with us, we'll kill everybody with disease. So, they've been, like I said, they were trying to use starvation and disease to kill people, but it's not working. So that plan, their genocidal plans have now been stopped. And
most people who read about conspiracy, and admittedly they may not know as much as they think they do, would attest that the P2 Masonic Lodge, controlling the Vatican and the Rothschilds and so forth, they also want massive depopulation.
Well, there's been a generational change of leadership, and no, they no longer want this. And you can look at the Catholic Church. Okay, whatever you can say about them, they have always been against birth control, and everywhere they have, strong Catholic rulership, like in South America, you have high rates of childbirth. So I can't see them as being in favor of depopulation. You see what I mean?
Right.
It's the Nazi group that wanted the depopulation. So there were the Vatican people tell me that they were just not, they were losing power. They were under attack, by the Muslims and by the Thule Alliance.
This is slightly off track, but I'm going to veer back in. We know that the CEO of Rockefeller Enterprises was recently seemingly murdered. I don't know if they called it a murder or not, but I guess it was a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head or something, allegedly self-inflicted.
Well, what I was told is that they had to kill him or he would have killed some of our people, and it's like putting down a rabid dog. This is what they told me about that.
They meaning who?
This would be kind of MI6 type people, not Chinese or Asian type people, okay?
So, given that assassination, and I believe you said before that David Rockefeller is more like a titular head of the cartel, but is not actually really the big boss anymore. Do you have any...
Yeah, the Rockefeller woman apparently rose up and that whole thing with the shareholders meeting for Exxon, all these Rockefellers showing up. The whole clan said, look, enough, and David has stepped back, but we've got J. Rockefeller active, and that's George Soros and Brzezinski and Obama, and they're kind of anti-Bush, but they want to instead, have Brzezinski, Soros, Obama, that whole group in charge. So that's who we're talking about now. Yeah, that's where they're coming from now. So that's Brzezinski, J. Rockefeller, Soros, Obama.
Okay. Now, if you read Christopher Story's article, he basically says that Obama has now caved in favor of this larger international alliance so as to allow Interpol to get in, because otherwise, if he had continued to side with the people that were in his cabinet, he would have faced imminent political destruction. Now, I've also heard from Rothschild sources that same exact thing that you've heard, which is that there's this plan to have him removed before the end of this month, which may or may not happen, but I heard the same thing that you did before you published it.
Yeah, well, what I heard also is that there's this trial on January 6th about his citizenship, and that the judge is a Marine, and that he's not either going to have to kill the judge or, Obama's going to be shown not to be legitimate, and the controllers of Obama don't want this exposed, so in order to cover things up and hide their tracks, they might try to kill him. This is what I've heard. Now, there are, I think, one group is saying they want to get rid of Biden and Obama and have Nancy Pelosi and Hillary Clinton take over. So that would be like the woman in these factions saying, all right, look, our men folk have been bad, give us a break, we'll let the woman on this side of the things handle it. And then, of course, there's a lot of people in the military and the other agencies and stuff who say, no, we don't want those nasty ladies there, they're just as bad. We want to install a temporary government, hold free and fair elections, and return the United States to constitutional rules. So that's where I think the fault lines are. And Christopher Story is obviously with the Queen of England. And the problem with the Queen of England is that I actually personally interfered on her behalf. Her husband Philip and the oldest son of Queen Beatrix showed up in Tokyo with a $2.1 trillion check.
A check?
And, yes, or a bond, whatever,
Okay.
Instrument, And they asked me to call the bank and say, please cash it. So I did. I called the chairman of Mitsubishi Tokyo UFJ Bank and said the Black Dragon Society would like you to cash that check for them. And then she turned around and gave the money to George Bush and all those people.
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
Right into Nazi faction. And then all sorts of people on the British side felt they had been betrayed by the Queen. And they started sending me all sorts of information about her. And it turns out...
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but how did you not get killed as a result of this?
Well, because I immediately explained that I had been fooled by these